Thank you very much for your introduction. It's a real pleasure for me to be here today with Riyam. We've worked together in different ways a lot in the last year, and with our organizations, because we have a common objective, common purpose, common passion, which is to develop a really good, strong, high-integrity carbon market that's as global as can be, as liquid as can be, as transparent as can be. But there's lots of different ways to do that. So, Riyam, why should we care about this carbon market? Given everything else that's going on, why should we care about this?
Just before starting, I just want to say that I'm grateful to you, Bill, for all of the support. And for Standard Chartered, I need to give a nod to Standard Chartered, their help, their support to us since day one. When we were not known at all, we picked up the phone, called the team in Standard Chartered. They came back to us where others doubted us. So I would just like to say thank you. You're on our advisory board. So thank you very much for your support and being with us here today. Why is voluntary carbon market important? Because we matter as human beings, because our planet matters, and climate change is a big problem that we all need to tackle. If we were to reach the 1.5 degrees Celsius we all hear about, and I'm not sure if anybody here in the audience know what is the 1.5 degrees Celsius means, it means a cumulative emissions between 2018 to 2050 of 570 megatons. That means what? If we look at last year's emission, it was around 40. Multiply that by 30, it's impossible that we're going to reach 1.5 degrees Celsius. In fact, we're going to reach it in 2035. Voluntary carbon markets provides a means and tools to remove CO2 from the atmosphere, to accelerate climate action, to help communities. And that is all facilitated by the market as an incentive for project developer to develop and scale projects. These projects either avoid or remove CO2 from the atmosphere. And these are very important projects to be financed, and they are otherwise uneconomic without the voluntary carbon market as a tool.
Yeah, so I know we share the commitment that without having a proper marketplace for carbon, it'll be very hard to hit the targets that we've got. There's a school of thought that says we should just do nothing and wait for the technology to come and solve all the problems for us. But I think if you've looked at the challenge, you know that that's not going to happen in a time frame that works. So we need a price for carbon, and we need a market to get money into the hands of people that can actually get the carbon out of the atmosphere or keep it from going in. But we don't have a price today, right? We have a lot of different prices today. We have prices in different voluntary markets. We have prices for different types of product, and then, of course, we've got government-linked markets. And we don't have a real market either. So tell us how the regional RVCMC or the rest of us can contribute to getting a proper market and a proper price so that corporations like Standard Chartered Bank can make decisions knowing what the cost is that we're inflicting on the global society because of our carbon emissions.
Well, I mean, it's a very important question. The market has got several challenges, but one of them is price discovery. And this is a very important challenge and issue for the market. 80% of the credits that are traded are over the counter. So there's a lot of margins that are out there. Just to give an example, we did the auction in Kenya, Nairobi, last June. One of the credits was offered to me through a single project, was offered to me at $25 a ton. 2 months later, it was offered to me at $15 a ton. If you look at the market, it hasn't moved much to see that shift and move. And I think by us, when we looked here in Saudi Arabia, we started the journey, and you started with us a couple years ago. There was zero supply, zero demand. In fact, you talk to customers or buyers, and you say, what is a voluntary carbon market? What is a carbon credit offset? And we thought that we're going to set up a company that is based on an ecosystem, not an exchange. And this is very important to us, because in order to set up a market over here, if you have an exchange, a toolkit doesn't work. You need to bring demand and you need to bring supply. So what do we do about that? We said a pillar would be for the exchange. The exchange is going to connect the buyer with the seller. So price discovery comes in and help project developers to finance. We're going to set advisory services, part of which what we're doing today, which is educating.
Yep.
So advisory services is very important to us, helps demand to grow. And then we have investment services. And the investment services, we will invest in projects in Saudi Arabia and in the Global South. So this is how the voluntary carbon market, and this is the Saudi vision for it. Saudi Arabia is going to be a leader in the market. We aim to be one of the biggest markets by 2030. The country has been making huge steps, leapfrogs, to take the country from where it is right now, it's number 10 in the terms of emissions in the world, into reducing their emissions by 50%, versus 2016 baseline. Renewable energy in the grid mix is going to be 50%. Another methane reduction by 30%. I mean, a lot of initiatives are being done with the Saudi Green Initiative and Vision 2030 led by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, which is fantastic movement that is happening over here. And I truly believe that Middle East could take the climate action into the very next step. We have resources over here. We have the appetite to do something.
I'm sure you're right, and I know in my last few days here in this room, the number of conversations that we've had about sustainability, sustainable finance, renewable power, and carbon markets is like never before. So there's a tremendous pent-up demand for these products. But we observe a couple of things. One is there's not much confidence in this market right now. Volumes are actually going down rather than going up, despite the awareness of the need for this market ever greater. So question, why? Why is there a lack of confidence? And maybe, I've got to follow up, but let's deal with the confidence issue first, because I know we're both struggling with that a lot.
Well, confidence come, and you know about that, you were leading the task force for scaling voluntary carbon market, and ICVCM came out of that. There is a lot of, I think the root cause of this is lack of awareness. What does voluntary carbon market mean? We've seen a lot of, and this is the elephant of the room, we're talking about integrity issues. A lot of articles coming out, and let us be very frank, I really welcome what is happening right now, because this market is here to stay and it's going to be scaled. So the earlier we work on our issues and we get it right, the better. So we see ICVCM, and we have Doris over here in the board, and we welcome what the CCPs are out there. The core ICVCM is a third-party independent body, and is non-for-profit. It looks after the integrity and the quality of the market, and it issued a framework for core carbon principles that should ensure the integrity of the market. This is but we also look for the COP28, one global market, ETMOS. How do we trade carbon credits between nations that have surplus to nations that have a deficit? And that is no nation could reach their NDCs. Some of the nations would not be able to reach their NDCs on their own. They would need carbon credit offset to reach their national determined contribution, which is what we call the NDCs, or the commitment of governments to reach certain targets, be it net zero or reducing their emissions to a level at a certain time frame.
Yeah. So let's try to unpack this a little bit, because if we can't get the confidence in this market up, there will be transactions, but there's always going to be a question whether it's impactful. So,
you know what we've done to face this issue? So in our auction, we had 2 auctions. And this need to be solved because it put a lot of pressure on us. We had 2 separate due diligence teams, right? Everyone looking at each project that we are buying, checking everything. If there's a red flag, then we would exclude the project. So we did a lot of work to ensure the quality of the project. But also, you know what could be done as well? If a country, we've seen something coming from Singapore called the white list, setting what needs to be traded within certain jurisdiction, within certain quality standards, criteria, be it vintage, be it certain type of projects, be it CORSIA or not. So it needs as well interventions from regulators, be it United Nations, be it governments, ICVCM, to help unlock that.
So Riyadh, when you say we need intervention from governments and regulators, I get very nervous.
Of course.
Because if governments and regulators were doing their jobs, we wouldn't have a climate crisis at all. There'd be a global price for carbon, cheaters would be penalized with cross-border adjustment tariffs, the price of carbon would be $100 a ton, and there'd be zero net emissions today. But that hasn't happened, and here's my prediction. It's not going to happen. If we rely on governments, I think we've got a problem. But we also know that there's, I think you and I know agree, there's got to be a common set of standards that are at least broadly comparable. I mean, they don't have to be exactly the same, but we have several today, right? We've all been reading about the way the UN is approaching Article 6 credits or IMOs with one set of standards. CORSIA, which came out of the airline industry, is a second set of standards. The ICVCM will come up with a third set of standards based off of CORSIA, but nevertheless, a different set of standards. Is that a big deal to have several different standards?
I think we all, and that's why we're bringing everybody in the room, and I think we had the MENA Climate Week, we had the Nairobi declarations. The more we get together, the more we think as one industry, it would be great. Having one standard that we all agree in will facilitate trade for sure, and then will help debottleneck the issues that we face in the market right now. It's not the issue of the demand. I mean, in 1 year, we had 3.6 million tons sold to 16 different Saudi companies, and we started 1.5 years ago. It's just the confidence, and having one framework that we all agree on would be great, but can we agree on one framework?
Can we try?
Yes.
We'll try. We're going to try. Thankfully, Riyadh is involved in all these fora. In our own way, Standard Chartered is involved in most of these fora, and maybe we can get that. But so, I'm the CEO of a bank. We spend money every year on carbon credits. I do that because our stakeholders care that we're making an effort to address our part of global emissions. And we look around and we look for very high quality credits. And then we spend money, and then we tell our shareholders this is what we've done. And sometimes they say, that's fantastic. Sometimes they say, no, you're greenwashing.
Yeah, of course.
You think that's a good project, but
Okay.
I don't know that it's a good project. Not scalable, right? It's not scalable for the shareholders to do due diligence on every carbon credit that we and every other company buys. So we know we have to get a common set of standards. I'm going to put my money on the ICVCM. You've got two directors right here in the front row. You're supporting that as well. And let's see if we can bring the rest of the world around.
But you touched upon a very important point. We're talking about the quality of the credits from the supply side. What about greenwashing from the buy side? I mean, this is another thing that another fold of the story is supply and demand as well. For companies that are buying their carbon credits, what are they doing to decarbonize their operations? And we've seen VCMI coming out there and said you could do more than just decarbonizing, because what really matters for me as a human being is the journey to net zero of these companies. Not when they are going to reach the net zero, is what they are doing in between. As they decarbonize, they should accelerate by using carbon credit offsets.
That's a really critically important point. We probably should have started there, that if we're not all doing everything we can to decarbonize first, then the carbon market will never be credible. Because the carbon markets can't solve the problem. They can just top it up, as it were. So that's a really good reminder. But I'm just trying to unpack this why don't we have a robust market today? You've been clear we need to get as close as we can to a common set of standards that really aren't questioned by most people. We could do that, right? We agree. Second is we need to have credibility for the people buying those credits, that they're going to be recognized. Use the VCMI. They're on the right track, right? We all support that. But now we've got many different marketplaces that have been established. Yours is one. But in Hong Kong, in China, obviously in Europe, some are voluntary, some are government regulated, some are listed contracts on exchanges. In such a fragmented market, can we expect there to be confidence, or do we have to see some sort of convergence?
And I really like what you're saying, because I just came back from Abu Dhabi last week, where there was the United Nations Sustainability for Stock Exchanges initiative. It's been there for 20 years. And in there was all of the CEOs of different national stock exchanges sitting, and everybody was saying, we're going to follow what the Saudis has done. We're going to do first auction, second, everyone. And I'm not bragging over here. This is what we're going to do. And then we're going to set up our exchange. And I sat over there and said, you setting your exchange, I'm talking about Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan,
Right.
Korea. We're talking, Korea, they had their own scheme already, but everybody was talking that we're going to do. Egypt said they were going to follow the Saudis. I mean, so if every market does that, then and this is what I said, is a fragmented market. This is a problem. It is a liquid market and does not help price discovery. So the answer is consolidation is the inevitable. Here in the GCC, we have, I mean, and this is the issue as well in consolidated markets, carbon accounting, I see it. Tax treaties, how do we do the trade between different countries? I see a lot of opportunities, and we're working that in the GCC. We're talking to different exchanges because there's between the GCC countries, there are tax treaties, there is unification of carbon accounting, and you will see regional consolidations. This is what I think, and this is what I predict. You will see regional consolidation, or you will see exchanges coming together that are very complementary. Like for instance, in Singapore, you have your focus on nature-based, other markets are focused on avoidance, and then that complements the whole story.
So you're hopeful. You're hopeful.
I am.
Help us imagine what success looks like in this market.
I really hope that this market by 2030 is trading around 1 gigaton. That is a huge success. Let me tell you why it matters for me.
So put that in dollars for us.
Huh?
Put that in dollars.
In dollars, we're
reals.
talking about $50 billion. Right now, the market, all of what we're talking about is $2 billion. Last year, 200 million tons has been traded. So it's a market that is growing. 200 million tons means emissions of a country like Algeria. It's good, but it's not good enough. We need to act more, we need to act faster. But it matters for me personally because when I was in Kenya, I went to the villages and I had Riyadh is here in this room, right? You carried the wood on your back for the cook stoves. You couldn't carry it. Women, and that moved me. I didn't dare to do it. On their head, and you will see it in the videos, they carry wood on their back, you cut the trees, you cook an open fire, and you inhale these emissions, and yes, it's really, it's really bad. And you cook, and it's harmful in every way. So that market brings co-benefits to a lot of societies that are untouched, untapped. And I would say, if we all see, then we believe. And we believe we need all to act. And this is very important to me personally. So this market is very important to help communities. It's very important to accelerate climate action. I anticipate that this market is going to grow. What we're having with integrity conversation, I find it very healthy. Credibility is very healthy because this market is here to stay. This market will channel millions of dollars in removal. We're talking about direct air capture. And since we're here in Saudi Arabia, we had Ibrahim, the EVP from Aramco, talking about carbon capture utilization. Solar power is the strongest in the Eastern Province. They have the reservoirs, they have the infrastructure. And this is a high quality credit because of the permanence. We have long shores here in Saudi Arabia along the Red Sea for blue carbon. It's temperate. So we have the second capacity in the world in blue carbon, and we have a lot of capacity here in the Middle East. But the market is not only about avoidance, it's about removal, it's about benefiting communities, helping women. There was a project in South Africa that helped rehabilitation of water supply to communities that are deprived of that. So there's a lot of benefits of that is how to get the market function right.
So I agree with all of that, and I think it's very exciting and very well said. The $50 billion equivalent, I guess that assumes $100 a ton, which is maybe still a low price, even though we're buying credits today at $15 a ton or even less. But I'd love to set the ambition for all of us that could be actually a much bigger number than rather than 50 gigatons, we're getting to 500 gigatons over a period of time. I'd like to put two other possible benefits on the table, see if you agree. One is that that will establish a price for carbon that will affect the decision making for businesses, corporations across the world once they're fully aware of what their externality cost is. I think that could have as big an impact on accelerating the transformation as the carbon market itself. And third is that every one of those projects that is qualified to generate a carbon credit is also qualified to receive financing.
Absolutely.
From a bank, from the capital markets, from the MDBs, which can accelerate the pace of decarbonization. Do you see those things working together, and are we doing the right things to enable all three of those advantages to a good, strong, robust carbon market?
I see that there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of people, we need to bring a lot of people in the room and work. To give you an example, we were talking to the Kenyan presidency. I mean, this is a problem that we see. We're talking to the Kenyan presidency about, you find Zimbabwe coming with a different regulation, Liberia saying X, different countries. So we're talking about some presidency to assume leadership, bring different countries together and say, this is the regulation. This is what we expect. If you come, invest in our countries, we're not going to tax you beyond, to bring in project developers. And again, it needs collaboration. It needs bringing voice together. And that's what we're trying to do today by bringing voices together, by increasing the awareness, and by bringing countries together, by bringing standard setters. This needs to be done. It needs leadership. It needs parties coming together, and we're trying to assume a little bit of small, tiny role when it comes to RVCMC, doing that from here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Super. I think we've got some time to take questions. If anybody has a question for Riyam.
Or for Bill.
Please. Maybe you can just, if you shout it out, I'll repeat the question.
Yeah, so actually, I have a question for you, Bill. I'm Atul Arya from S&P. My question to you, Bill, is that how is your sector, how are your peers doing? I know you're very engaged, clearly, and what are they doing, and what can they do more?
So I think that, as is often the case, the banking sector becomes the enforcement arm of policymakers or shareholders for whatever the action is of the day. In the old days, it still is financial crime compliance. We don't commit the financial crimes, but we process them so that the regulators expect from us. The same thing is happening in sustainability broadly. So every bank is obliged, really, to articulate its own net zero pathway. And every bank is struggling with the question of how much of this, because of course the emissions are coming from our clients, not from ourselves. 98% comes from our clients. And the question comes up, one, who's going to determine what the appropriate pathway is? Science-Based Target Initiative is doing some work in that. It's quite slow, I'll say, and extraordinarily painful. But it has to happen. Second is, we have to engage with our clients. How much are we using carrots? How much are we using a stick? How much do we let things slide? And then there's this critical question, always after you've done everything you can to decarbonize, how should we be using offsets? So Standard Chartered is the chair of the Net Zero Banking Alliance, which is the group of banks that are coming up with the metrics for what an appropriate approach to all those questions is. We're making tremendous progress. And I must say that our clients, who are the corporations and governments of the world, are also making tremendous progress. A huge focus is coming in this area. The question about how people use offsets or buy and sell carbon credits is still opaque in a lot of their minds. And you get to the VCMI, which is, we can, Riyam and I and others can set the standards for what's a good carbon credit. We know that there will be some people who say there's no such thing as a good carbon credit. They'll always be there. But it's a tiny minority, and we should recognize that. Second is, what's a good corporation? Who's doing the right job? Who's actually decarbonizing at the right pace? And then the third is, when you've gotten to that part where you just can't reduce anymore because some processes don't lend themselves to decarbonization, can we buy carbon credits to offset the rest? Those three questions are the keys. Banks are, for better or for worse, at the forefront of all of that.
Can I add something about what you've done, Bill? And I don't know if you realize or not. You put your name behind this, right? You and Mark Carney. And I don't know if you realize the impact that you had just by supporting the voluntary carbon market, by putting your name. And we need to see more of that leadership. I know that you might have got comments here or there, but I hope
You're very kind with comments. I've had effigies of me burned in front of our building every Thursday morning for 2 years because there are a group of people who think carbon credits are the product of the devil. And
Yeah.
of course, I completely disagree. And I love the fact that people can have different opinions, but we can't let that distract us from the core mission is we've got to get money into the hands of people who are going to reduce carbon in the environment. It's that simple. And there's lots of different ways to do that.
And then again, you put your name on it.
I'll put my name.
And you supported that. You and Mark Carney, and this is what we
And
need
you.
as well.
And by the way, you and Yasser Ramayan and the Crown Prince, I mean, this is what you're building here in the RVCMC is outstanding. And it could only happen with the backing of the leadership of this country.
Absolutely. As I said, Saudi Arabia, we have our, as well, our chairwoman here, Rania as well. So, I mean, again, this country is, I mean, it's just such a blessing to be here in that time in this country. There's a lot of ambition, there's growth, there's real genuine care about the climate and making something different. And it makes one very proud to be part of that, very humbled. Yeah.
I must say, I'm very proud to be part of it. I'll be really proud when we've succeeded.
I know. We need to attempt as much
we
as
have
we
a bit of
can,
work to
push.
do.
Yeah.
Other questions? I've got tons of questions for Oh, there's a question in the back?
That's Morgan Stanley.
That's not Morgan Stanley. That's
Morgan Stanley.
oh, there, okay.
I'm Tatiana. I'm from Colombia. So I wanted to hear a bit more about what you're doing in Latin America, if there are any conversations happening, or how we could get more involved.
Okay, in the first auction we have carbon credits traded from Argentina. So this is something we're really keen on. One of the things that we would like to come and see more when His Excellency Minister of Investment was in Brazil, we had a conversation about us going to Brazil and Uruguay. We've seen the Amazon conference. We hope to see more of that, and we will definitely get engaged. What we are trying to assume over here is leadership in the global south. We see a lot of north to south. This time we want to do it south to south. So we want to be here, we want to be active. Africa is close to us, Africa is great, but also South America and Southeast Asia. So we're going to be active in all of that. We had a lot of credits as well from Southeast Asia. So, thank you.
To say on the scale and pace of development. Every time I hear you speak, it's really impressive. I wanted you to tell us why starting in, I mean, it's a great way to frame it in the global south, but what are the unique challenges of the south, and how do you ensure that participation in the carbon market doesn't take away from economic development? Like, share with us some of the things that you do to ensure that climate targets doesn't compromise sustainable development. Thank you.
Okay. Well, Noura is a guru in CAPSARC. She's from MIT. She's a great friend. I would say about Global South, what is the main challenge in Global South? I'll give an example by Africa. We talked about Africa today. 4% of the global emissions come from Africa. Yet, we heard the president of Kenya saying that last year, 4 million people almost died from famine. And the impact are more severe in the global south rather than anywhere else. So this is a problem of channeling funds to the global south. This is what Bill mentioned about the regulation, the confidence in the market, getting projects started in the global south. Because you know what? The answer is in the global south. It's not anywhere else. So how do we get finances into the global south? How do we scale climate action? How do we make sure that global south, and this is, you see, you must have seen in the negotiation in COP, there is the north versus the south. You have developed, we are not developed. By putting targets on us, we are delaying in our development. I would say the opposite. I see climate change as an opportunity for jobs,
That's right.
for projects, for employment, for education, for impact in communities. But the question is how to channel finances into these communities in the Global South. I'd like to hear your opinion as well.
Yeah,
Bill.
and I completely agree. First of all, this $50 billion that Riyam talks about, or $500 billion that I would aspire to, is money that's overwhelmingly going to the Global South. It's, in many cases, it's to not do bad things rather than to do, so it's just pure economic development capital. It could create lots and lots of jobs and lots of opportunity. But as Riyam says, Standard Chartered is a bank that operates across developing economies around the world. We're acutely aware of where the risk is being borne for a 1.5 or 2 degree increase in temperatures. When you're sitting as the second biggest bank in Bangladesh, it's really, really important that we not get anywhere close to 2 degrees for that country for all the obvious reasons. And I could repeat that in almost every market in which we
Nile
operate.
Delta in Egypt by 2100.
It's terrifying,
Yeah.
but we know that. So there's an avoided cost, there's an opportunity, and then there's real money that will go into the Global South if we get this market right.
Do you know that 53% of sub-Saharan Africa don't have access to electricity? Not having access to electricity means no schools, no financial system. It is no hospitals. So that could be enabled by voluntary carbon market. That's why the $50 billion is a drop in the bucket. Do you know that 40% of the global population does not have access to clean cooking fuel? It's unbelievable impact if that market is scaled, and that's why we need your voices to lead the way for us in terms of, I'm not committing you to something here, but we need more voices to come and help in making sure that the market, the bottlenecks of the market, be it integrity, price discovery, standardization, get unblocked so that we can enable more jobs, more opportunities, more development for different countries.
Rem, you say it so well, and I can see what you're executing here on the ground. You're executing so well. I know you have the support of everybody here. You certainly have the support of me and Standard Chartered Bank. Those are the two people I can speak for. But you have much broader support than that. It's because you're doing great things, and we believe in the mission. So thank you so much. Thank you for joining us for this discussion.